Happy 2014. Yes, woo! I know, I'm excited for this new year. It's going to be, I just feel it. It's going to be an awesome year. Don't you think so? Yeah. All right, this topic of mine, spiritual beings having a human experience. You've all heard that term before, right? Anybody not heard that? All right, let me get my notes here together. Okay, so my goal for today is to kind of outline some of the foundational things about Centers for Spiritual Living and what it is that we believe. And Reverend Peggy is going to be doing the same thing throughout the whole month of January. This is a great time to be here and to come and really get the grounding, the foundation of what this teaching is all about. So how important do you think a foundation is to anything, right? If you're building a building, foundation is pretty important, right? You're building a life, foundation of your life is important, yes? Would you agree? All right, so let me give you some examples. This is what you call a faulty foundation. This is what happens when the foundation is not quite right. This is a building in Shanghai that was built in Shanghai, 2009, 13 stories. Before it was completed, the construction was completed, it kind of just tipped over like a big old Lego. They didn't take proper care, I think, in setting the foundation. So is that wild or what? My husband said, that's not for real. So, yeah, it is. Now, this is what you can have when you have a good foundation. This is the tallest building in the world. It is called the Burj Khalifa, and it's in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. It was completed also around the same time, January 2010. And this building is over a half mile tall, twice as tall as the Empire State Building. But the really impressive thing is the foundation, right? Think about that. It took over a year to build the foundation alone. And if you look, I don't know if you can see what it says, but 58,900 cubic yards of concrete weighing over 120,000 tons. Okay? That's what you can do when you've got a good foundation. That building's not going anywhere for a while. So this idea, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. What does that mean? What does that mean? And why is it important? Well, what I think it means is the idea that rather than being human beings having a spiritual experience, you know, the ground, the basis of who we are is really in spirit. That is the basis of everything. And when you have that basis, when you have that foundation right, you can build anything, you can do anything, you can create the kind of life that you want to have. And the foundation that our faith is built upon, that our tradition, the Centers for Spiritual Living, is the idea of the oneness of God. You know, it is the cornerstone of who we are and what it is that we believe in our teaching. So, Reverend Peggy's going to talk more about this, as like I said, as we go through January, some of the different topics that I'm going to bring up. She's going to expand on them as we go through. So I'm going to give you kind of an overview. But the thing that I want to talk to you most about this morning is this idea of theology. Now, most of you know I'm in ministerial school, right? I just completed a class in theology. Reverend Peggy actually was the instructor. So I want to cue you in a little bit into my life, my experience with this course, because the assignment that I had to do for my final was really one of the most impactful things that I've done in ministerial school thus far. And so I wanted to share that with you. And I'm going to cue you into what it was that was all about. Interested? Yeah, of course you are. Well, part of the assignment was to interview 3 spiritual leaders of different faiths, of people who might be coming into our building, you know, former Presbyterians, you know, whatever they might be. So I interviewed a Presbyterian minister, a Methodist minister, and a Jewish rabbi. In fact, the one who's going to speak tomorrow. And got their answers to 6 different questions. Now, I'm going to go over these 4 of the questions because that's all we'll have time for this morning. If you want to know the other 2, we can talk about it later. But 4 questions that we're going to talk about. I asked each one of them for their answers. They gave it to me. And then from their answers and from my own learning and from what we have been taught in Centers for Spiritual Living, I was to come up with my own theology, a 10-page paper that's all about what it is that I believe about theology, about God. And so let's go. What is theology? For anybody who doesn't know, it's a study of religious faith, practice, and experience. It's the study of God and God's relationship to the world, and it's your system of religious beliefs, right, or ideas. And as I went through this project, I just realized how really, truly important and foundational this is to my life and to yours, whether you actually realize it or not, because we all have a theology. Whether you realize it, you all have a belief about what God is. You all have spiritual beliefs. You may not think about it a whole lot, but you have it. And it is driving the machine, so to speak. Those lights are really bright. Okay, so you want to know what the questions are? Yes. Okay, all right. Question number 1. Think about these questions. I want you to be asking them to yourself. Answer them for yourself if you can. Be thinking about it. And remember, it's a 10-week course I took, so I don't expect you to know the answers, right now. But be thinking about it and contemplate them over the next weeks. First question is, what is the nature of God? What is the nature of God? Seems like for ministerial people, that would be a simple question, right? Well, the 2 Christian ministers I spoke to were like, wow, nobody's asked me that since I was in school. Oh, I'll have to think about that one. And I went back to, we believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. Anybody heard that? Y'all remember that? The Apostles' Creed? Yes? You could probably recite, right? How many? Well, that was the basis of my spiritual tradition, that Apostles' Creed. Growing up, good little Catholic girl, we'd say it every Sunday. And before I knew what the words were, I could recite the whole thing, or what it meant. I could recite all of it, right? Like probably all of you could. And I was very, very blessed that I went to a Catholic school with these wonderful nuns that were just so loving and kind and sweet. And I felt like, my idea of what God was that God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and everywhere present. Right? Have you guys heard that about God, the nature of God? Every religious tradition teaches that. So I learned that, but I also learned that God is a God of love. That God loved me, that God wants the best for me and for everybody else. So God is all there is, and God is love. That was the tradition that I grew up with till I was about 2nd grade. Now, I didn't realize how blessed I was to have started with that foundation until I started doing some more research for this talk. Because I found that there has been a series of studies and research on, I'm going to back this up, so I don't want you to see it yet, about the nature of God and what people's beliefs, spiritual beliefs, how that has an effect on their lives. So people who believe in God tend to have better mental health, but even more specifically than that, it's not just having a belief in God, it's what you believe about God, what your thoughts are. So now you can see. This is kind of a compilation of probably 4 or 5 different studies that I read. This is very general, but you guys can go into the literature if you want and look this up. Because what it shows is that people who believe that God is an angry God, that God is judgmental, that God is wrathful. I know there's some people that grew up with that in here, right? They have increased social anxiety, increased paranoia, obsession, and compulsion. And if you grew up with the idea that God is a loving God, it's the opposite. You have fewer psychiatric symptoms. Isn't that interesting? It makes sense, though, right? I'm going to find some words from the study because I want you to hear just what they said. And hope my glasses work better for me than they did for Norma. Okay. It says, belief in a benevolent God inhibits threat assessments about the dangerousness of the world and thereby decreases psychiatric symptoms. But belief in a punitive God facilitates threat assessments in the belief that a world is a dangerous place and that even God poses a threat of harm and therefore increases psychiatric symptomology. So does this mean that God-fearing individuals are more anxious because of their beliefs, or that individuals who believe in a loving God have less to worry about? The researchers say probably both. How interesting, huh? So I started out believing that God was all loving and wonderful, and my experience with the teachers that I had bore that out. But there was a point where it changed. There was the second grade nun who was like the stereotypic nun, that you see on the bad TV shows where they're pulling hair and pulling kids' ears and wrapping their knuckles with rulers. And I thought, wait a minute, this is not the loving representative of God that I thought I was supposed to be working with here, So that idea changed for me for a little bit. So, some of you may not have grown up with the idea of a loving God. Maybe you were taught about the angry, wrathful God that you had to be on the lookout for. That you had to hide from. You had to make sure you behaved so he didn't strike you down with thunder, right? Lightning. But aren't we lucky? Master Yoda says, what you must unlearn what you have learned. If you have beliefs and you have ideas that don't serve you, you can release those. We don't have to believe that stuff anymore. After that second grade, then I started hearing stuff about this devil and, God only spoke to people like, thousands of years ago. He doesn't speak to anyone now, and he certainly can't speak to you, right? What other kind of nonsense did we hear? So did I say that? Sorry. We heard things that, at least for me, didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to me. So you can always, you can change your belief system. You don't have to. That's why they're beliefs. Beliefs are changeable. Knowledge is different. We're going to get into that a little bit more. So my thought, what didn't make sense for me, is that if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present, why are we worried about this devil thing? Right? Doesn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense. If God is what we say that God is, all-knowing, all-powerful, everywhere present, he must encompass everything. Right? God has to be better than the greatest of human achievement. And he has to be bigger than human frailty. So this idea of God being wrathful and angry and all of that, to me, it's kind of like we're creating God in our image. We get angry, but God's got to be better than that. Wouldn't you think? Or it wouldn't be God. Wouldn't be God. So that's part of the paradox, is that God is this oneness, this one being, but it encompasses so much, this just tremendous diversity. And it's like us, right? The little dot there. The microcosm and the macrocosm. Even within your own body, there's a microcosm. You've got like trillions of cells in your body, each one of them that is like sentient, actually has consciousness, within this person that's you. And somehow they all work together to keep you going and get you up every morning, right? Get you to work or get you to church. You don't have a few, well, sometimes you do. You get a group of them that say, hey, I'm not going your way. I'm doing what I want to do. Never mind what the rest of you want. And what do we call that? Ooh, cancer. Right? You get a little group that says, I'm not doing what the rest of you are doing. I'm going to do my own thing. And we'll just take the whole body down with it while we're at it, right? That's what happens. So, God is a great paradox. From the one we have many. But there's another paradox. The rabbi I spoke to, Rabbi Harari, excuse me. Wonderful man. I hope you do go and see him tomorrow. He just got engaged, by the way. I found out on Facebook. Somebody took pictures of him proposing to his bride-to-be. Anyway, lovely thing. Anyway, I asked him about the nature of God. And he said, you Christians, he kind of lumped us in all together, right? You Christians like to say that God is all loving. But what kind of God allows people to be killed? What about the Holocaust? 6 million Jews were killed. 2 million of those were kids. If God is God and God is all loving, why do these things happen? And that is the tough question, isn't it? It's a really good question. Really good question. I've thought about it myself many times, right? Why do bad things happen to good people if this God is all loving and all wonderful as we say it is? So I didn't have myself a real good answer for him. It really wasn't the place to have a debate about this, but something to think about. And so I didn't have the experience that he had of losing his family in the Holocaust. All of his grandparents and aunts and uncles and just a whole family wiped out. But what I did was I went to the words of someone who had been through the Holocaust. How many people know the name Viktor Frankl? You know the name Viktor Frankl. A lot of you know Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl spent 3 years in Auschwitz and Dachau, and he was a psychiatrist from Vienna. And he went through the worst things that a person could go through. And he wrote a series of books, the most famous of which is called Man's Search for Meaning. He lost his mother, his father, his wife, his brother, aunts, uncles, almost everyone. Was stripped of basically all of his humanity. Right? So this is a person, you would think anyway, if you or I went through something like that, I don't know how much would be left by the time the experience was complete. So someone I think worth listening to and someone that we can learn from. And his book, Man's Search for Meaning, sold over 10 million copies by the time he passed in 1997, and was translated into like 27 languages. The U.S. Library of Congress calls it one of the 10 most influential books there is. So if you haven't read his book, please do pick it up. It's not an easy read. It's very thin. The words are simple, but the ideas and the conversations and the things he talks about are really very profound. So not something that you take lightly. But there was so much wisdom in what he said. I had a hard time just keeping it to these 4 ideas here. The first one, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. So he went through all of this experience, this horrible thing, and came out saying that basically, I'll just summarize what he said, that we all suffer. Everyone has pain and suffering in their life. In fact, there's a whole religion that was built around pain and suffering. You know that? Do y'all know that? A whole world religion. It's called Buddhism. Because someone asked the question, why do we suffer? Okay, so everyone, it's part of the human condition. We all have pain and suffering. But you know what? Our task as human beings is to make meaning of that. And guess what? We decide what that meaning is going to be, not somebody else. Nobody else gets to decide that for you. Okay, and the decision you make makes all the difference. Right, so the meaning of life is to give life meaning. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. We see these celebrities, and you think, gosh, they have fame, they have money, they have all of this, and next thing you know, they kill themselves, or they're drinking and drugging, they're doing all this crazy stuff, and you think, why? If I had that, I'd be thrilled, right? Life would be awesome. But maybe they're lacking meaning and purpose. Doesn't matter the circumstances, doesn't matter how little you have, how much you have. It's all about the meaning and the purpose that you see in your life. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, and that's to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. Stuff's going to happen, right? You get to decide what that stuff means and what you're going to do with it. And then finally, and I think this is really profound, that what is to give light must endure burning. Right? That which is to give light to others must endure burning. I have a little parable that I want to read you that's along these lines. Why things happen to people. And some of you have heard it. You were in my flow workshop. So excuse me, you're going to hear it again. Okay. It's an old Zen story, and it goes like this. An old Chinese farmer had a mare that broke through a fence and ran away. When his neighbors learned of it, they came to the farmer and said, "What bad luck this is. You don't have a horse during planting season." farmer listened and then replied, "Bad luck, good luck, who knows?" A few days later, the mayor returned with 2 stallions. When the neighbors learned of it, they visited the farmer. "You are now a rich man. It is planting season." Oops, wrong one. Anyway, this is good luck, right? Now you have 2? Did I mess it up? What good fortune this is, they said. Sorry about that. What good fortune, right? Now you've got two mares. The farmer listened again and said, "Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" Later that day, the farmer's only son was thrown from one of the stallions and broke his leg. When the neighbors heard about it, they came to the farmer. "Oh no, it's planting season, and now there's no one to help you. This is truly bad luck." The farmer listened, and once more he said, what do you think? Bad luck, good luck, who knows, right? The very next day, the emperor's army rode into town and conscripted the eldest son in every family. Only the farmer's son with his broken leg remained behind. Soon the neighbors arrived. Tearfully they said, "Yours is the only son who was not taken from his family and went to war. What good fortune this is," right? Good luck? Bad luck? Who's to say? Who's to say? So the wise farmer, unlike his neighbors, does not judge events as good or bad. He practices non-judgment and therefore avoids the trap of labeling something in mind. The meaning we put on our events is always subjective, relative and subjective. You know, as the great 16th century English metaphysician said, you know, who said in Hamlet, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." So maybe that's the answer. It's an idea anyway, right? By the way, you never have to believe anything I say. I invite you to consider the possibilities. Are you ready for the next question? All right, nature of God. The next question is, what is God's relationship to humanity? And I believe the answer to this question is inherent in the first question, right? If God is all there is, then we are a reflection, or we are a manifestation of God. And I love this quote from Rumi. "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." Isn't that something? So you're not this little tiny human being. You're God stuff. You maybe not all of it. You know, like the drop is not the whole ocean, but you're God stuff. How cool is that? How cool is that? I believe that we are the mind, the heart, and the body of God. You know, we're the mind of God. Think about this. Look at this room. Look at everything in this room. Most everything in here is man-made, right? Got the stage here. We've got carpet. You got paint on the walls, the ceiling, everything. Would you agree that everything in here that's man-made existed as an idea before it was manifested as an object, right? Or thing. Someone had to have an idea first, and then they said, "I'm going to make such and such," and they did it, right? Now take a look at your hands, your feet, right? Your body. Look at the people next to you. If we follow that same reasoning, each one of you, each one of us, human beings, the plants, the nature outside, had to exist as an idea somewhere, right? Had to be an idea someplace. There had to be a blueprint. There had to be some kind of a plan for it to come together. And I would say that that blueprint, that idea, exists in the mind of God. See, because we are created in the image and likeness of our Creator. That doesn't mean that we look like God. It means that we have the same attributes of the God that created us. It means that we are creators as well. It means that we have mind. We think, we use the mind of God as we create. The rabbi, he was my favorite interview, by the way. He was awesome. When I asked him this question, he said that he sees God in his relationships. As he deals with people and they deal with him in all of his relationships, that's where he sees God. So think about that, as you pass a stranger or your acquaintances or maybe people at work, your friends, your parents, your children, your lovers, your siblings, everybody. Those are all relationships that are opportunities for you to manifest God. And that is how God shows himself, herself, itself to you. Right? All of our relationships. So we're the heart of God. We're the mind of God. We're the heart of God. We're the body of God. God acts and does and is and works through us. How else would it happen? Right? How else? So that's question number 2. See if there's anything else I want to say about that. I think that's it. Okay, so next question. What is the authority for spiritual truth? What am I basing all this stuff on? Right? What do you think my 3 spiritual leaders said? What is the authority for spiritual truth? The Bible, right? The Bible. It's where we differed a little. Okay. Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. This is another great quote. And it's not mine. I'll tell you who said it. The Buddha said it. You can have too much information. It's a 20-minute talk, and it takes like days to put it together. Okay. The quote says, do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. Do not believe in anything simply because it is found in your religious books. Say what? Okay. Do not believe in anything merely on the authority of your teachers and elders. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down by many generations, but after observation and analysis. When you find anything that agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, accept it and live up to it. Okay? That is one of the coolest things about this church. Is that you're never going to find someone who stands up on this pulpit and tells you have to believe anything, ever. Okay? We expect that you will use your own good reasoning, your own judgment, and figure it out, We give you the tools, but you have to decide for yourself what you're going to believe, what you're not, what works for you and what doesn't. So what are the ways, back this up again, and say, that there are ways that we know things. Maybe you hadn't thought about that. There's basically 4 ways that we know things, that we come to know. Not to believe, because belief can come from somebody telling you something. Doesn't mean you know it. That means you believe it, right? And your beliefs can change. We know that. We all used to believe in a little red, man that wore a red suit. We saw him recently. We don't believe that. Not as like an actual reality anymore, right? There's no kids in here, is there? So beliefs change. But knowledge is more, knowledge is eternal. So knowledge lasts a while. So that's different. So there's 4 ways that we can know things. The first way is to know scientifically something. And, we're all basically little scientists. From the time we're little, right? We're looking at things, we're experimenting, we're seeing how it works for us, and this is the scientific model. You have a theory, you make predictions, and then you do experiments. And you see, does it work, doesn't it work? And you make observations, and it just goes around, right? Observation, theory, prediction, experiment. Works, right? Our society is pretty much, it's very scientifically based. If it doesn't stand up to science, we don't believe it pretty much, right? But science is based primarily on our senses. And are our senses ever wrong, or are they ever, maybe don't tell the whole story? I'll tell you a real quick story about my husband and I. My husband has no sense of smell. No sense of smell. And I can walk in the door and be like, I have a very strong sense, a very keen sense of smell. So I walk in the door and it's like, oh my gosh, garbage needs to be thrown out. Or sushi probably did a dookie somewhere, so let's find it, I can smell these things very quickly, where he doesn't know that it's happened. And I often wonder, what if most people were like him and I was like me, right? How would that world be? I'd walk into a room and be like, oh my gosh, that garbage needs to be thrown out. They'd be like, are you a witch? How do you know that? How can you tell? Right, so we know that our observations and our senses are not giving us the whole picture. So there's another way that we can know. And that is through philosophy. And in philosophy, we use logic, we use reason, we use language, and people have been doing this since the dawn of time. Okay, our tradition here, Centers for Spiritual Living, has a very strong philosophical base. We're new thought, but we're ancient wisdom. And Ernest Holmes said it, we're not teaching anything new here. Okay, you can go back for centuries, for millennia, okay, and see that the things that we're speaking of reflect truth, So logic and reason is part of philosophy, another way of knowing. The next way, now both of these things, logic, philosophy, reason, and science, are what we call objective. That means that other people can see it, other people can talk about it, other people can experience it, other people can experiment, it can be duplicated. You know what I'm saying? It's objective. There's another way of knowing that is completely subjective. That means that only the person who experiences that can know what it is. And that is your intuition. Your intuition. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein. Right? And we think, he's a scientist, right? But here he is talking about the importance of intuition. And people will poo-poo your intuition. It's just your intuition, right? They tell you, that's not to be trusted. I've heard people say that. You can't trust your feelings. You can't trust your intuition. It's another way of knowing, right? Even Einstein said it. Steve Jobs, another big one on using your intuition as a way of knowing. Completely subjective. No one else can know your intuitions, right? Now that's the way, think about your intuition. That's the way you can look across the room and say, that's the person I'm going to marry, right? Or know that this is the job for me. This is my vocation. This is what I was born to do. You don't know why you know it. You just know it. You get that gut feeling that tells you this is the truth. The next way of knowing is direct experience. And this is what we call those transcendental experiences. This is, people will have like a near-death experience, or they have a mystical experience in meditation. And it's an experience of direct knowing of truth. It's like a divine download. Everything just comes, you have the answers, and no one can tell you otherwise. Completely subjective experience. And how we know that direct experience, that these things happen, is because after someone has had one of these experiences, their life is transformed. They have miraculous healings. They're no longer afraid of death and dying. Their lives are completely and utterly changed. And people can see that. They can see the results. So, again, 4 ways of knowing. 4 ways of knowing. I personally, as part of my theology, believe that if God is all-powerful, all-present, all-knowing, right, all those omniscient things, then whatever our theology is, it needs to be able to be backed up by the 4 ways of knowing. It has to stand up to scientific investigation. It has to stand up to philosophical argument. It has to work for your intuition. It has to feel right. And it has to be open to people having direct experience and getting it for themselves. Does that make sense? And I think our tradition does that. I know our tradition does that. That's what it's built on. All 4 ways of knowing. So, What is the role of personal spiritual experience? I asked my 3 religious leaders, what's the role of personal spiritual experience? And it was kind of, the answers were a mixed bag. The Presbyterian minister said, essentially, it's irrelevant. It doesn't add to the knowledge of the community, therefore it is irrelevant. I disagree. Can y'all read that? See, I think that your personal experience, that is where the rubber meets the road. Don't tell me a lot of theory. Don't give me a lot of stuff. Give me something that I can use that's going to make my life better. And that's what I feel like we've gotten here, right? We get tools, we get practices. You are always, always, always encouraged to use your personal experience. Try this stuff out in the laboratory of your life. That's how you know it works. And that's why I just quit my job with no safety net for the first time ever because what I was doing wasn't serving me anymore. It wasn't serving me, and it was taking me off track of what I know is mine to do. And you all have what is yours to do, right? You all have those things that light you up when you think about it, right? You all have those things that bring you joy, and yet you spend the days just kind of trudging through, just getting by, right? Got to make a paycheck, right? But no more, right? It's a new year. It's a new year. Step in. Yes, step into your greatness. Step into the life that is waiting for you, that is calling you. There's no time like the present to do that. Right? And you know, it is always, always, always your choice. Always your choice. A theology, and again, that going back to why I wanted to talk about this, because your theology, what you believe about God, about your relationship to the universe and to life, what you believe about what your capabilities are, what you can do, what's possible for you, that's your foundation for everything else. That is your foundation. And a faulty foundation is going to have you fall over like a Lego, right? But a good, strong foundation will let you build whatever it is that you want. Okay? It's up to you to choose your path. This is the time, right? Choose your path. And now, if you would, let's do our affirmation together. Can you guys see this? Okay. Together, I live in conscious awareness of the divine presence within me and in every outer aspect of my life. I live in gratitude, knowing all my current needs are met. I live joyous expectation, knowing the future is unfolding in miraculous, magnificent ways at this very moment. I accept all the good that is coming my way in 2014. And so it is, and so it is. You guys ready? All right, all right. So now take a moment if you would. And if you want to, close your eyes, just turn within. And tune into the secret place of the Most High, that place where the entire universe dwells, where we feel ourselves to be one with the universal presence. This place is an awareness, an experience of love, of truth, of beauty, and of peace. When you are in that place in you and I am in that place in me, we are connected, all of us, manifestations of the one magnificent power we call God. We know that the awareness of our oneness, of the love, the truth, the beauty, and the peace at the core of our being is a firm foundation for a life well lived, a life of meaning and purpose. I affirm that as each one steps into this new year, each one feels empowered to release any and all things which no longer serve their highest and best. As we release that which no longer serves, we accept into our life that which is life-affirming and life-expanding. I affirm that each one has the confidence, strength, and resources needed to meet any and all challenges. I affirm physical health and well-being, financial abundance, and loving, nurturing relationships for each and every one throughout this year. As their lives overflow with blessings, those whose lives they touch are also blessed because we are blessed to be a blessing to others. I give thanks for the all-knowing, all-powerful presence that is manifesting our good at this very moment. Therefore, it is with excitement and great anticipation that I release these words, knowing that 2014 will be the best year ever. And so it is.